Yesterday afternoon, a photograph appeared on wire services that nobody who has followed this tournament's build-up was expecting to feel the way it did. Iran's national football team arriving in Tijuana, Mexico. Players stepping off a bus, and outside the hotel where they were staying, Iranian fans, already there, waving flags. Not a staged photo opportunity, not an official welcome event, just fans who had been following the situation for months, who knew where the team was going, who got themselves there because even though they couldn't get visas to watch their team play in the United States, they could get to Tijuana, they could stand outside the hotel, they could wave their flags at the players coming through the door. That image says something about football that no commercial model or legal investigation can produce. It says that the sport finds a way, that the people who love it find a way, that even a tournament this complicated, this fraught, this expensive, this scrutinized, even this one generates moments of pure human connection that none of the surrounding noise can prevent. Iran beat Mali 4-0 in their final warm-up match. Saeed Ezzatoli spoke to Al Jazeera, quote, "It doesn't matter what happens off the pitch. When we step onto the pitch, we represent our country. That's all that matters." End quote. And in the square outside their Tijuana hotel, fans held flags and cheered. 3 days from the opening ceremony, and that is the most human moment of this entire build-up. Now let's talk about what else is happening today, June 8th, 2026, because alongside that image, 3 days before kickoff, FIFA is still managing problems that should have been resolved weeks ago. Some of them got worse this weekend. Germany's Lennart Karl was ruled out of the tournament yesterday. Not an injury known for weeks, a late withdrawal confirmed by ESPN's injuries tracker on Saturday. The defensive midfielder was listed among the late ruled-out players, joining a Germany squad that was already navigating the absence of Serge Gnabry and the goalkeeping uncertainty following Ter Stegen's hamstring concerns. Nagelsmann's system has the depth to absorb it, but every late withdrawal at this stage is a logistical and tactical disruption that the coaching staff has to solve in the 48 hours before their opening match. Canada lost Moise Bombito on Saturday. The defender was reportedly ruled out because his leg is not yet healthy enough, according to sources cited by Yahoo Sports. Canada's defensive group was already thin, with Alphonso Davies at left back and the ACL comeback concerns still hovering over his match fitness, and losing Bombito tightens the options further for Jesse Marsch ahead of their opening match against Bosnia and Herzegovina on June 12th at BMO Field in Toronto. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, hosting 8 World Cup matches, including the USMNT opener against Paraguay on June 12th, has a workforce that voted on Friday to authorize a strike. Unite Here Local 11 represents the cooks, dishwashers, bartenders, and concession workers who feed and serve 69,000 fans per match. Their contract negotiations with stadium operator Legends Global have not produced an agreement. No strike date has been announced, but the authorization vote is the formal last step before a work stoppage can be called. 3 days from the U.S. opener, FIFA has not commented. FIFA also banned vuvuzelas, the instrument that defined the sound of the 2010 South Africa World Cup, the plastic horn that divided opinion for an entire tournament but became one of its most enduring images, has been prohibited from 2026 venues. The prohibition covers all artificial noise-making devices. No vuvuzelas, no air horns, no clappers. That decision, announced without particular fanfare this week, is one of those choices that looks administrative but carries cultural weight. The vuvuzela wasn't just an instrument, it was the sound of Africa hosting a World Cup for the first time. Its presence in 2010 was chaotic and controversial and ultimately unforgettable. Banning it in 2026, in a tournament where FIFA has already been criticized for making the event feel less accessible, less inclusive, and less connected to the wider world of football, is the kind of decision that accumulates, each one small, Together, they sketch a portrait. Here's where things get interesting with the Banorte Stadium situation, because this is a story that has been reported intermittently but deserves direct attention as the opening ceremony approaches. When the Azteca, now called the Banorte Stadium for the duration of the tournament, reopened on March 28th after its $150 million renovation, the occasion was surrounded not only by celebration but by protest. Residents and community groups gathered outside the stadium to demonstrate. Their concerns were specific. Mexico's hosting of the World Cup was proceeding while communities around the stadium faced ongoing shortages of housing, water, transport, and electricity. The investment going into the stadium was visible. The investment in the infrastructure of daily life around it was, in their assessment, not sufficient. The CFR published a piece this week noting that people gathered outside the Azteca on its reopening day to protest Mexico's hosting of the World Cup amid these shortages. That protest didn't make major international headlines. It wasn't a large demonstration, but it was a real one in the shadow of the stadium that will host the opening ceremony in 3 days, from people who live there and had something to say about what they were watching be built around them. On June 11th, those same streets will be filled with tens of thousands of fans from around the world. The opening ceremony will happen. The noise and color of Mexico opening the tournament at their most iconic stadium will be extraordinary, and the protest outside on March 28th will be a footnote, if it's remembered at all. But the people who held those signs will still be there on June 11th and on July 20th when the cameras have moved on. Now let's talk about what today's picture looks like 3 days out, because the story of this build-up has always been a story in 2 registers running simultaneously, and it's important to hold both. The problems register, a workers' strike authorization at the tournament's most profile U.S. venue, late injury withdrawals for Germany and Canada, a Vuvuela ban that removes an instrument associated with football's most important continental milestone, protests at the Banorte Stadium during its reopening, an Attorney General investigation into FIFA's ticketing practices still active and unresolved, the Ebola outbreak in DR Congo prompting a 21-day quarantine requirement that Canada confirmed this week, further complicating fan travel logistics, SoFi Stadium's workers having no contract 3 days from the USMNT's opening match, the football register, Iran's players arriving in Tijuana with fans waving flags outside their hotel, Messi training in Kansas City on June 3rd in images that circulated everywhere, Ivory Coast beating France 2-1 in a warm-up, creating storylines before the group stage has even started, Japan quietly preparing in a way that should concern everyone who dismisses them, Morocco's defensive organization looking as impenetrable in warm-ups as it did in 2022, Spain navigating the Fermin Lopez injury with a squad deep enough to absorb it, England with Bellingham and Foden fit, focused, and motivated by 62 years of waiting. Both of those registers are real. Both will be present when the opening whistle blows at the Banorte Stadium on June 11th. Here's what makes the 2026 build-up genuinely unlike anything before it. At every previous tournament surrounded by controversy, South Africa 2010, Brazil 2014, Russia 2018, Qatar 2022, the problems were primarily concentrated in one category: governance and corruption in 2010 and 2018, infrastructure and displacement in 2014, human rights in 2022. In 2026, the problems span every category simultaneously: legal, the Attorney General's subpoenas; economic, the $250 million host city shortfall and hotel occupancy collapse; social, fan access barriers affecting citizens of 4 qualified nations; environmental, the 9 million-ton carbon footprint that the New Weather Institute described as almost double any previous tournament; labor, the SoFi workers' strike authorization 3 days from the USMNT opener; health, the Ebola outbreak creating quarantine requirements for DR Congo; cultural, the Vuvuela ban, the halftime show replacing 15 minutes of football with a concert, the mandatory hydration breaks that first appeared in a meeting with broadcasters. No tournament has arrived carrying problems in all of those categories simultaneously,
FIFA has not found comprehensive answers to any of them. And yet, the football begins in 3 days. And the football is genuinely, compellingly, historically significant. 48 nations, 104 matches, Messi's last World Cup, Ronaldo's last World Cup, the first World Cup final halftime show, the first rechargeable match ball, the first round of 32 in the tournament's history, the first time 3 countries have co-hosted, the largest total prize fund ever distributed, the biggest and most complicated World Cup in history, both of those things at the same time. Does that combination produce something remarkable? Or does the weight of the complications dull the brightness of the football? The next 6 weeks will answer that question in a way that no build-up coverage ever can. Here's what I want to know from you. What are you most looking forward to watching in this tournament, not despite everything surrounding it, but purely from a football perspective? Which match, which player, which potential upset has you genuinely excited? Give me the football answer, not the governance one. Leave it in the comments. After everything we've covered over the past several months, and we've covered a lot, let's end today with the sport itself. Hit the like button if this gave you the full picture. Subscribe if you're not already here. We're covering every match and every angle from June 11th to July 19th. 3 days. Then it's just football. And football, at its best, is worth all of this.